My wife got pregnant by her ex and told me he makes her feel alive in ways I never could. Then months later, she's begging me to take her back after he dumped her for her best friend. I guess karma always come around eventually. So this happened last week and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. I, 34 male, own an auto repair shop that I built from scratch. Not rich, but doing all right, you know? My wife Stephanie, 29 female, works as a dental hygienist. We've been together 4 years total, married for 8 months. Everything seemed pretty normal, talking about kids, maybe buying a bigger house, all that married couple stuff. Here's where it gets messed up. Last Tuesday, I was helping Stephanie organize some work files on her laptop. She's always been messy with paperwork, and I offered to help sort through everything while she made dinner. Pretty normal Tuesday night, nothing crazy. I'm going through folders looking for her tax documents when I accidentally click on this folder labeled personal stuff. That's when I saw them. Ultrasound pictures, multiple ones, dated from 2 weeks ago. Dude, my heart literally started pounding. I'm thinking, holy shit, she's pregnant and hasn't told me yet. Maybe she's planning some surprise or waiting for the right moment to break the news. I'm sitting there staring at these grainy black and white images, thinking I'm gonna be a dad. Started imagining telling my parents, thinking about how we'd need to convert the spare room into a nursery, wondering if it's a boy or girl. I was actually getting emotional looking at those pictures. I walked into the kitchen with the laptop, probably grinning like an idiot. She saw what was on the screen, and her face went completely white, like all the blood just drained out of it instantly. That should have been my first clue that something was seriously wrong. She told me she could explain. I asked when she was going to tell me we're having a baby, still thinking this was just bad timing on my part for finding out early. She just stood there for like 10 seconds, opening and closing her mouth like a fish out of water. Then she sat down at the kitchen table and put her head in her hands. That's when she dropped the bomb. I don't know how to tell you this, but you're not the father. What? The words didn't make sense at first, like my brain couldn't process what she just said. I'm still holding the laptop with the ultrasound pictures on the screen, and she's telling me I'm not the father of the baby I was just getting excited about. It was Kevin's baby, her ex from high school who moved back to town about 6 months ago to work construction. The same Kevin she dated for like 2 years back in the day before he moved away for college. I just stared at her. Couldn't think of anything to say. My wife is pregnant with another man's baby. The woman I married, who's been living in my house, sleeping in my bed every night, is carrying some other dude's kid. Everything started clicking into place. Why she'd been distant lately. Why she suddenly cared about eating healthy and cut out coffee. Why she's been going to bed early, saying she was tired all the time. Why she kept getting texts at weird hours and would flip her phone face down when I walked by. All those little things that didn't seem like a big deal at the time suddenly made perfect sense. The worst part? I helped her pick out that phone plan upgrade last month. Been paying for the service she's been using to coordinate her affair. How's that for irony? I told her I needed to go for a drive and walked out the door. Didn't even grab my jacket or wallet. Just got in my truck and started driving. Spent about 2 hours just cruising around town trying to process what the hell just happened. Kept thinking maybe I misunderstood something. Maybe there was some explanation that would make this make sense, but there wasn't. My wife of 8 months has been cheating on me with her high school ex and got pregnant with his baby. I kept replaying the moment I saw those ultrasound pictures. How happy I was for those few minutes thinking we were starting our family. How I was already planning to call my dad and tell him he was going to be a grandpa. Instead, I find out my wife's been freaking around behind my back for months. The crazy part is she seemed more upset about getting caught than about what she actually did. Like her biggest problem was that I found the ultrasound pics instead of her being able to control how I found out. Not that she cheated. Not that she's pregnant with another man's baby. Just that her timeline got messed up. And Kevin? Dude was always a piece of shit even back in high school. I remember hearing stories about how he treated girls back then. Total player who would sweet talk them into bed and then ghost them. But apparently Stephanie thought he'd changed or some shit. Women always think they can fix guys like that. When I finally got home, I sat in my truck for a few minutes, just staring at the house. My house that I worked so hard to buy. The house where I thought we'd raise our kids someday. Now it just felt like a crime scene where my marriage got murdered. I could see her through the living room window, pacing around, and probably rehearsing whatever sob story she was going to tell me. Probably trying to figure out how to spin this as somehow not being her fault. Women are good at that shit, making themselves the victim even when they're the ones who freaked up. I finally went inside because sitting in the truck wasn't going to solve anything. Time to hear whatever bullshit explanation she had cooked up. Time to find out just how deep this betrayal went. Time to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do with the rest of my life. Walking up to my own front door felt like walking to my execution. Everything was about to change and there was no going back. The life I thought I had was already over. I just didn't know what was going to replace it yet. She started explaining how it wasn't supposed to happen like this. How they ran into each other at Target a few months ago and started talking. One thing led to another, and here we are. Like it was some accident that just happened to them, instead of a series of deliberate choices she made over months. I asked if that was her explanation. She started crying harder and told me I didn't understand. That her and Kevin have history. They have this connection that she's never had with anyone else. This is the part where I'm supposed to feel sorry for her, I guess. Poor Stephanie, torn between two men and their magical connection. I reminded her we're married. You know, that thing where you promise to be faithful to one person? That legal document we signed 8 months ago? She said she knew that, but what Kevin and her have is different. He understands her in ways that I never could. When she's with him, she feels like the person she was always meant to be. This is where I started seeing red. She's literally telling me that another man makes her feel more like herself than her own husband does. So I asked what now? Did she want a divorce so she could play house with Kevin and their baby? Seemed like the logical next step if he's so much better than me. She said Kevin wants to work things out. He realizes now that they never should have broken up in high school. He says he's ready to be a father and a husband. Of course he does. I told her to pack her shit and get out of my house. This is where the real Stephanie came out. She started screaming at me about how I couldn't just kick her out, how this was her home too. I had to remind her this is my house that I bought before we got married. Her home is apparently with Kevin now, so she should go make herself comfortable there. She kept screaming about how I was being unreasonable, how I should be more understanding of her feelings, how she never meant for me to get hurt. Like I was the one being unreasonable here. Like I should be more considerate of the feelings of the woman who's been cheating on me for months. This is the part that really shows what kind of person she is. Even caught red-handed, even carrying another man's baby, she still thinks I should be concerned about her feelings. She wants understanding and compassion for betraying our marriage. The audacity is honestly impressive. Then she said, "You know what, Aaron? Maybe this is for the best. Kevin is twice the man you'll ever be. He's passionate and exciting, and he actually makes me feel wanted." There it was. The real truth about what she thinks of me. I'm not passionate enough. I'm not exciting enough. I don't make her feel wanted enough. Everything wrong with our marriage is my fault for not being Kevin. I told her she had 24 hours to pack her things and get out. She could figure out the rest with Kevin, since he's apparently so much better than me. The next morning she was gone with 2 suitcases and her attitude. Left early, probably didn't want to face me again. But before she left, she made sure to tell me how I'd regret this. How Kevin was going to give her everything she ever wanted. Good luck with that. You know what's funny? She packed like she was going on vacation, not leaving permanently. 2 suitcases for someone who's been living here for over a year. Either she's really bad at packing, or she thought this was temporary. Like maybe I'd come to my senses and beg her to come back once I realized what I was losing. The house felt different immediately. Quiet in a way it hadn't been in months. I spent that first day just sitting in my own living room, drinking coffee and trying to process what had happened. My wife of 8 months was gone. The woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with had chosen her high school boyfriend over me. The future I'd been planning was completely freaked. I started thinking about what she said about Kevin being twice the man I am. What kind of man destroys someone else's marriage? What kind of man gets a married woman pregnant and then expects her to leave her husband for him? That's not being a man. That's being a piece of shit who takes what doesn't belong to him. The more I thought about it, the more I realized she did me a favor. If she could lie to my face for months, if she could fake loving me while being with someone else, if she could get pregnant by another man and plan to pass it off as mine, what kind of future would we have had? How long before she got bored again and found another Kevin to make her feel alive? By the end of that day, I wasn't heartbroken anymore. I was pissed. Pissed that I wasted 4 years on someone who could betray me that easily. Pissed that I trusted someone who was playing me the whole time. But mostly pissed that she thought I should just accept it and be understanding about her needs. She wanted Kevin? She could have Kevin. She wanted passion and excitement? She could deal with whatever drama comes with that. She thought Kevin was twice the man I am? She was about to find out exactly what kind of man Kevin really is when shit gets real. Time to protect myself and let her live with the consequences of her choices. So I called my lawyer Matthew. We went to high school together, and he's helped me with business contracts before. So I trusted him to handle this mess. I explained the situation, and he told me to come in immediately. Like, drop everything and get to his office right now. Matthew's always been straight with me, never sugarcoats anything. First thing he said was that I needed to protect my assets immediately. The house, the business, my bank accounts, everything. Since she cheated and there's proof with the pregnancy, we could file for fault-based divorce in our state. That was good news because it meant she couldn't claim half my shit just because we got married. I asked about the car situation. She'd been driving my Honda for over a year, but her name wasn't on the loan. I'd been paying the insurance too. Matthew told me to report it stolen if she doesn't return it voluntarily since it's my name and my car. If she wants to leave me for Kevin, she can figure out her own transportation. We spent the next 2 hours going through everything I owned. Matthew explained that since we'd only been married 8 months and she'd been cheating for at least half that time, she wouldn't be entitled to much. The house was mine before marriage. The business was mine. Even most of our furniture I'd bought before she moved in. Turns out, keeping good records of what you owned before marriage is really important. The prenup conversation came up too. We never did one because I trusted her and didn't think it was necessary. Matthew just shook his head and said that's what every guy says before his wife screws him over. Lesson learned for next time, I guess. He told me to change every password, every bank account, every credit card that day. Cut off her access to everything. He said guys always hesitate on this part because they feel bad. But she didn't feel bad when she was cheating. So why should I feel bad about protecting myself? I went home and spent the rest of the day doing exactly that. It was actually kind of therapeutic, like I was erasing her from my life one password at a time. Each account I changed felt like taking back control. I also called and removed her from my auto insurance policy. She'd been covered under my plan since she moved in. Not my problem anymore. If she wants to drive around town, she can figure out her own insurance. That evening, my phone started blowing up. First, it was Stephanie asking why I changed all the passwords and saying she couldn't get into anything. I told her that was correct since she doesn't live here anymore. Pretty simple logic if you ask me. She asked about the car insurance, saying they told her she's not covered anymore. I told her that's between her and Kevin now. He's such a great provider, right? He can handle adding her to his insurance. Then her best friend Brooklyn started texting me. Brooklyn works at the same dental office as Stephanie, always thought she was hot shit because she drives a BMW and dates different guys every month. She's one of those women who thinks every relationship problem can be solved if the man just tries harder. Brooklyn texted asking what the hell was wrong with me. Stephanie is pregnant, and I'm abandoning her? Like I'm the bad guy in this situation somehow. I texted back explaining that Stephanie is pregnant with another man's baby. She left me for him. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm just not financing her new life with her boyfriend. Brooklyn replied that I was being a total jerk. She made a mistake, but she's still my wife. This is the typical female response. Minimize the cheating as a mistake and focus on my reaction instead of her actions. I blocked Brooklyn's number. If she wants to support Stephanie's choices, she can use her own money to do it. I'm not interested in being lectured by someone who thinks adultery is just a little oopsie that I should get over. The real satisfaction came 3 days later when Stephanie showed up at my shop during work hours. She asked if we could talk in private. She told me the Honda won't start, and Kevin says it's probably the transmission. Could I look at it? The audacity of this woman is unbelievable. She leaves me for another man and then expects me to fix her car problems for free. I said no, simple as that. She asked what I meant by no, reminding me I'm a mechanic. Like being a mechanic means I have to fix every broken car in town regardless of who owns it. I told her I'm a business owner, and she's not my customer. Kevin can figure it out. If he's such a great provider and twice the man I am, he should be able to handle a transmission problem. She said Kevin's truck broke down too, and they can't afford to fix both vehicles right now. So let me get this straight. Kevin, the construction worker who makes good money, can't afford to fix his own truck? And now they want me to subsidize their transportation problems? Yeah, right. I told her that sounds like a Kevin problem. Not my circus, not my monkeys anymore. She started crying again, saying she gets that I'm mad, but she still needs help sometimes. We were together for 4 years. This is where she tries to cash in on our history, like it means something after what she did. I reminded her that she threw those 4 years away to be with Kevin. So go get help from Kevin. If he can't help her with basic life problems, maybe she picked the wrong guy to leave me for. She left without saying anything else. My employees have seen me deal with difficult customers before, but never a cheating ex-wife begging for free car repairs. Word travels fast in a small town. By the end of the week, everyone knew Stephanie had left me for her high school boyfriend and that she was pregnant. Most people were supportive, said I was better off without her. A few asked if I was okay, like they expected me to be devastated or something. My parents were pissed when they found out. My dad called me that Friday night after hearing it from someone. He said he never trusted Stephanie anyway, thought she was too high maintenance from the start. My mom was more upset about the whole situation, kept asking if I needed anything, and offering to bring me food like I was going to waste away from heartbreak. My brother Dave was actually the most supportive. When he called to check on me, he just said good riddance, and that Kevin did me a favor by taking my problem away. Dave never liked Stephanie either, said she always acted like she was too good for our family. He offered to go have a chat with Kevin if I wanted, but I told him it wasn't worth it. Let Kevin deal with the consequences of his choices without any help from us. Honestly, I felt better than I had in months. No more wondering where she was. No more paying for shit I couldn't afford. No more pretending everything was fine when it obviously wasn't. My house felt like mine again. My money felt like mine again. My life felt like mine again. She wanted Kevin so bad. Now she gets to deal with Kevin's broke ass and his broken truck and his inability to provide for the family he helped create. She thought the grass was greener? Time to find out what Kevin's yard actually looks like when you have to live in it every day. About 2 months after Stephanie left, I was at the grocery store when I ran into Brooklyn. She was with some guy I didn't recognize, trying to avoid eye contact. But she saw me first and couldn't really pretend she didn't notice me. She said, "Hey," and I said, "Hey back." Real warm reunion, you know? She asked how I was doing and mentioned that Stephanie asks about me sometimes. Like I'm supposed to care what Stephanie thinks about my life now. I told her I'm great. Business is good. Life is good. Then I asked how married life was treating Stephanie. Just being polite, you understand. Brooklyn looked uncomfortable and said they're adjusting. Kevin's having a hard time finding steady work. Construction jobs are kind of slow right now. Translation: Kevin's a flaky employee who can't hold down a job and now they're struggling financially. Brooklyn told me that Stephanie had to cut back her hours because of morning sickness. So things are tight. So let me get this straight. Kevin can't find steady work. Stephanie had to reduce her hours, and they're living in an expensive, shitty apartment. Sounds like paradise. I nodded like I cared and said, I'm sure they'll figure it out. They're soulmates, right? That's what all those Facebook posts were about. True love conquers all, including financial reality, apparently. Brooklyn mumbled something about taking care and practically ran to the checkout line. She looked embarrassed, like she knew how pathetic their situation sounded compared to my obvious improvement. That night, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was Stephanie saying she knows I probably don't want to hear from her, but she wanted me to know that her and Kevin are doing really well. They're planning to get married after the baby comes. She hopes I can be happy for them. I stared at that text for a while. If they were doing so well, why did she feel the need to tell me about it? If everything was so perfect with Kevin, why was she reaching out to her ex-husband? People don't brag about how great their life is unless they're trying to convince themselves as much as everyone else. I deleted the message without responding. If they were doing really well, good for them. If they weren't, that's not my problem anymore. Either way, I didn't need to hear about it. But the fact that she texted me at all told me everything I needed to know. Things weren't going as smoothly in paradise as her social media posts suggested. Kevin probably wasn't turning out to be the knight in shining armor she thought he was. Reality was setting in, and it wasn't matching the fantasy she'd built up in her head. The thing about guys like Kevin is they're great at the chase. They're exciting when everything is new and forbidden, and you're sneaking around having an affair. But when it comes to actual adulting, paying bills, dealing with pregnancy symptoms, figuring out health insurance, handling real relationship problems, they tend to fall short. Stephanie was probably starting to realize that passion and excitement don't pay the rent. That feeling alive doesn't help when your boyfriend can't keep a job. That having a connection with someone doesn't mean they're equipped to handle real-life responsibilities. Meanwhile, I was thriving. My business was growing. My health was improving. My stress levels were at an all-time low. Turns out, when you're not constantly worried about what your partner is hiding from you, you can actually enjoy your life. She gambled our marriage on Kevin being better than me. So far, it looked like she was losing that bet pretty badly. And the house always wins in the end. About a month later, I was chilling after work when my brother Dave called. He asked if I'd heard the latest about Stephanie and Kevin. The way he said it, I could tell this wasn't going to be good news for them. I told him I don't really keep track of what they're up to. And honestly, I didn't. My life was going great without them in it. Dave said, well, you might find this interesting. They broke up. Like, really bad. That got my attention. Not because I was hoping they'd fail, but because the timing seemed weird. Stephanie's gotta be like 7 months pregnant by now. What kind of piece of shit abandons a pregnant woman that far along? I asked what happened, and Dave started laughing. He said I was gonna love this story. Turns out Kevin was cheating on Stephanie with Brooklyn. Dave found out because he was doing electrical work at the dental office where they both work, and he overheard Brooklyn on the phone crying to someone about how everything went to shit. Now that definitely got my attention. Brooklyn with Kevin behind Stephanie's back? That's some next level betrayal right there. Dave explained that Kevin had been showing up at the dental office during lunch breaks, supposedly to see Stephanie, but really he was flirting with Brooklyn. Then, about 6 weeks ago, they started hooking up. Classic player move. Use your pregnant girlfriend as an excuse to scope out her friends. According to what Dave overheard, Kevin kept telling Brooklyn that Stephanie was getting all emotional and difficult because of the pregnancy. Like pregnancy hormones are some shocking surprise that nobody could have seen coming. Poor Kevin, having to deal with the consequences of getting someone pregnant. Brooklyn apparently fell for it hard. Thought she was saving Kevin from his crazy pregnant girlfriend or some shit. She probably felt like she was doing him a favor by giving him what Stephanie couldn't. Dave said the whole thing came crashing down last week when Stephanie came home early from a doctor's appointment and found them in bed together, in the same bed where Stephanie's been sleeping while pregnant with Kevin's baby. The level of disrespect is honestly impressive. I asked Dave what happened after Stephanie caught them, because that had to be one hell of a scene. Dave said Kevin kicked Stephanie out that same day, told her the baby probably isn't even his anyway, and that she needs to figure out her own situation. So Kevin went from ready to be a father and husband to denying paternity in the span of 3 months. What a stand-up guy. Dave also mentioned that Stephanie's staying at her mom's house now, sleeping on the couch because there's no spare room. From a 3-bedroom house with her husband to a couch at her mother's place. That's quite a journey. I asked if Brooklyn's still with Kevin, because stealing your pregnant friend's man is one thing, but keeping him after he proves what kind of person he is? That's something else entirely. Dave said, yeah, Brooklyn moved in with Kevin right after he kicked Stephanie out. She's probably going to find out real quick what kind of guy she actually won. Kevin's the type who gets bored easily and moves on to the next thing when reality sets in. Dave asked if I felt bad for Stephanie at all, like maybe I should reach out or something. I told Dave to let me explain something. Stephanie chose Kevin over me. She told me Kevin was twice the man I'd ever be. She said being with him made her feel alive in ways I never could. She's pregnant with his baby. Those were all choices she made. Now Brooklyn chose Kevin over her friendship with Stephanie. She decided to sleep with her pregnant best friend's boyfriend. Those are choices she made too. The fact that none of this worked out the way they imagined isn't my problem to solve. Everyone got exactly what they wanted, just not how they thought it would go. The beautiful thing about this whole situation is the karma. Stephanie wanted passion and excitement over stability and commitment. She got it. Kevin wanted to freak around with no consequences. He got consequences. Brooklyn wanted to steal her friend's man. She got him, along with all his problems. You know what the funniest part is? Brooklyn probably thought she was upgrading by stealing Kevin from Stephanie. Little does she know she just inherited a guy who cheats on pregnant women and can't hold down a job. Good luck with that prize, Brooklyn. Sometimes karma doesn't need your help. Sometimes you just step back and watch people destroy themselves with their own shitty choices. And sometimes your brother calls you with the play-by-play while it's happening. 2 days later, I was closing up the shop when I saw someone familiar walking across the parking lot. Stephanie, 7 months pregnant, was showing big time. She looked tired as hell, her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she was wearing sweatpants that had definitely seen better days. This was not the same woman who left me months ago talking about how Kevin was going to give her everything she ever wanted. She thanked me for not driving away when I saw her, like I had somewhere else to go from my own business. I reminded her I'm at my own shop. Where exactly would I drive to? She tried to laugh, but it came out all awkward and fake. I asked what she wanted. Might as well get straight to the point. She said she knows I probably heard about Kevin in Brooklyn. Small town. Word travels fast, especially when it involves this much drama. I said I heard. Didn't elaborate because I wanted to see what story she was going to tell. She told me she was so wrong about everything. Kevin turned out to be exactly what I probably knew he was all along. A selfish jerk who runs away the second things get difficult. No shit, Stephanie. Everyone except you could see that coming from a mile away. I just stood there waiting for her to get to the point. I had a feeling this wasn't just a social visit to admit she was wrong. She said she knows she hurt me and said horrible things that she can't take back. But she's about to have a baby and has nowhere to go. Her mom's house is temporary, and she's already talking about Stephanie needing to find somewhere else to stay. So even her own mother doesn't want to deal with this mess long term. I asked what about Brooklyn, since they were best friends. You know, the friend who was supposed to have her back through thick and thin. She said Brooklyn chose Kevin over their friendship. She's still seeing him even though he's not paying any child support and has made it clear he wants nothing to do with the baby. So Brooklyn traded her pregnant best friend for a deadbeat baby daddy who can't keep a job. Smart move. I said so her best friend is dating her baby daddy, who won't support his own kid. That's quite a situation they've all created. Like a Jerry Springer episode, but with more consequences. She said she's not asking me to take her back as my wife. She knows she destroyed that. But maybe we could work something out where she could stay in the spare room until after the baby comes. She could pay rent when she goes back to work full time. I looked at this woman who used to be my wife. 7 months pregnant with another man's baby, abandoned by both her lover and her best friend, begging to move back into the house she walked out of to be with someone who was supposedly twice the man I'd ever be. The situation was so freaked up it was almost funny. I told her she said that Kevin made her feel alive in ways I never could. She said he was passionate and exciting and everything I wasn't. She chose him and his baby over our marriage. Those were her exact words, and I remembered every one of them. She said she knows what she said and that she was confused and stupid and thought Kevin was something he wasn't. But she realizes now that what we had was real and stable and good. Translation: now that the excitement wore off and reality hit, she wants her safety net back. I said what we had. Past tense. She's right about that. There's no going back to something that was built on lies for months. She said she's scared. She doesn't know how she's going to handle being a single mom with no support system. Kevin won't even answer her calls anymore. Welcome to the consequences of your choices, Stephanie. I told her that sounds like something she should have thought about before she decided to have his baby. Actions have consequences, and this is hers to deal with. She asked, "Don't you feel anything for me at all? We were together for 4 years, trying to cash in on our history like it should override everything she did." I said, "I feel sorry for that baby. Kid's gonna have Kevin for a father and her for a mother. That's a rough start in life. Because that innocent kid didn't choose any of this shit." Her face changed from pleading to angry real quick. The mask slipped and I saw the real Stephanie underneath. She said fine. She gets that I hate her. But this is my fault too. If I had been a better husband, if I had given her what she needed emotionally, none of this would have happened. And there it was. Even desperate and pregnant and homeless, she still couldn't take responsibility for her own choices. I said she's right. I should have been psychic and known exactly what she needed emotionally. I should have somehow prevented her from freaking her ex-boyfriend and getting pregnant with his baby. That's totally on me. The sarcasm was thick enough to cut with a knife. She said she didn't mean it like that. I said yes, she did. Because taking responsibility for her actions isn't something she does. It's everyone else's fault. It's my fault for not being good enough. It's Kevin's fault for not being what she thought he was. It's Brooklyn's fault for stealing her man. Never her fault for making the choices that led to this. I walked toward my truck. This conversation was over. She asked where she's supposed to go. Like that was my problem to solve. I told her I don't know, but it's not my problem anymore. She wanted Kevin. She got Kevin. She wanted excitement and passion. She got excitement and passion. She just didn't like how the story ended. That was the last time I saw her. I drove home to my quiet house, made myself dinner, and watched TV in peace. About an hour later, I got a text from an unknown number saying this is Stephanie's mom, that she doesn't know what I said to her daughter, but she came home crying harder than she's ever seen, that I should be ashamed of myself. I blocked the number. I'm not interested in being guilt-tripped by the woman who raised someone who thinks adultery is no big deal. A couple months later, I heard through the grapevine that Stephanie had the baby, a girl. She's living in a studio apartment across town, working part-time at a different dental office, and struggling to make ends meet. Kevin sees the baby maybe once a month and pays about half of what he's supposed to in child support. Brooklyn and Kevin broke up not long after Stephanie caught them together. Apparently, Kevin started cheating on Brooklyn too, because that's what Kevin does. As for me, I'm dating someone new. She pays her own bills, has never mentioned needing a spare key to my house, and thinks cheating is a deal breaker instead of a mistake. Sometimes people ask me if I feel bad about not helping Stephanie when she was desperate. The answer is no. I feel bad for that little girl who's going to grow up with Kevin as a father and Stephanie as a mother. But Stephanie made her choices, and I made mine. The best revenge isn't elaborate schemes or dramatic confrontations. Sometimes it's just refusing to be someone's backup plan and watching them live with the consequences of choosing someone else over you. Sometimes it's building a better life without them and letting them see what they gave up.